Welcome to Not Entirely Unlike Tea with Christine Collins. Hey there, this is Christine Collins, and today we have a fun little exercise for what to do when you want to up-level your mindset in connection with up-leveling your content and your messaging. Because as we know, the impact and powerfulness of our content is directly tied to our mindset in terms of how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the value and the worth of our work, and our overall mood and mindset weather that ends up getting translated out to our audience in various different ways across that landscape. And so it can be helpful to have a few short and easy strategies that you can do consciously. So we know that subconsciously we have tools like EFT and hypnosis and yoga nidra and many others that we can use to transform thought patterns, belief systems. But if you want to do it at a conscious level in just a few minutes, we do have some tools at our disposal that are very useful. One of them is what I have called archiving the moon. Essentially, it is envisioning all of the thoughts that are happening in your mind at any given moment as little icons, almost like on a desktop or a screen, or you can think of them as the night sky, and they're each little different constellations or stars or planets. And envisioning that whatever it is that you're focused on the most heavily right now is the largest thing in that sky or on that screen. And if that is not the thing that you want to be focusing on the most intently right now for various reasons, maybe it's a problem, maybe it's something stressful, maybe you really need to be focusing on a project or something that you want to accomplish, you can envision that night sky with that object and kind of take your fingers in your mind's eye and squeeze it down to a smaller size. You can even take it and tuck it somewhere, tuck it under a tree stump, or tuck it somewhere if you're using the desktop visualization, tuck it into your archive folder and leave it there temporarily until you're ready to actually deal with it. And then visualizing taking the icon that is of most value to you right now. So let's say it's that project that you want to focus on, and enlarging that icon or that star or that constellation, making that much bigger in that bigger picture night sky or screen imagery. And in doing this, we are kind of accessing our subconscious is very visual. And so sometimes having images like this and doing a practice like this can make it a little bit easier to access the different contents of our mind and our working memory. There are also things that we can do with our thought patterns and our belief systems at the conscious level. So another tool is to take a belief, a thought pattern, or a commonly reoccurring thought that you notice popping up for you when you are embarking on something of importance. So this will help you to identify it. When we notice that the nature and the tone of the thought is negative or pessimistic about ourselves, and it evokes a very negative emotion, and in particular, you may hear it in someone else's voice, often someone who criticized you, a parent, a sibling, a teacher, a partner, an ex-partner, someone along the way who essentially has implanted this belief about you that you're not good at something, that something isn't going to work out for you, and you are targeting and zoning in on that specific thought or phrase and isolating it as a statement. You can begin by taking the statement, whatever it is, so trying to get as honest as you can with yourself, and let's just say the statement is something like, I never make the sale. And one of the first keys that you'll notice language with neurolinguistics is that when you catch phrases like always and never, you may be dealing with an irrational or limiting belief. But I challenge you to challenge your beliefs and to ask yourself if it is truly true that you never make the sale. And once you have identified that you've got a belief or thought pattern that you'd like to change, so if we're taking I never make the sale, we're going to shift it into something a little bit more positive. And I encourage you not to jump too far. And I think this is a mistake that a lot of people try to do with like affirmations, to go from I never make the sale to I always make the sale, or I'm amazing at sales. We can't really trick our subconscious. It doesn't work that way. It actually works a lot better if you try to make a small leap up from I never make the sale to something that feels more graspable or more within reach. Like, I've struggled a little bit with sales at times, but I'm learning. And it's getting better the more that I learn. I'm developing new skills. This is something I haven't done before, and I'm getting better each time. That feels more reachable than jumping all the way to like, I'm amazing at sales, I'm going to get it every time. Hey, if that works for you, by all means do it. But just a suggestion to go smaller and do it incrementally. And then when that new belief starts to feel really comfortable, level up again and just keep going. Now, of course, when you use subconscious tools, you can level up much faster than what we can do at the conscious levels. Another tool that's extremely beneficial is visualization. And I want to start with the caveat that visualization does not have to mean visuals or images. We all visualize differently, and the purpose of visualization is in the sensory details. So that can be a visual, it can be sight, but it can also be touch, taste, sound, smell, emotion. And a lot of times we leave out the emotion in our visualization practice. It's one of the most important pieces, perhaps the most important piece to visualize. We record visualization in a similar way to how we record memory in our brain, which means that the brain can't necessarily distinguish that well between the two things. So if our visualization is powerful enough and we include enough sensory details, it is more difficult for us to distinguish whether or not it actually happened. And we may experience an emotional response similar to as if we had had it happen in real life. And so as we practice visualization, like visualizing yourself going down the street, going into a new store, including all of those relevant sensory details, you can use this to visualize yourself being more confident. Perhaps if you're meeting with a new client or creating some new content or delivering a presentation, visualizing yourself doing it in a way that feels good to you, focusing again on the emotion, how you want to feel as you're delivering it. And I also encourage not getting too tied up in the details, because we want to leave some room for the universe to surprise and delight us, and just feeling really good at that point. So I focus on whatever I can reach for that feels believable to me, as opposed to things that I maybe don't know enough detail to visualize it effectively. It is a very cool neuroscience trick that we have access to. We're basically pre-creating a memory. You can also use visualization to envision a person who may be seeing your content and having them really connect or resonate with that content and helping them feel a bit closer to you. And then another powerful practice that we can do is to visualize yourself in the future, having completed the goal or finishing the project that you're focused on, and looking into what type of setting you might find yourself in, the sensory details of that setting, how you are feeling in that moment, and essentially pre-creating that memory of completing something. And then there are a couple other little elements here that you can play with if you want to take it further. One is to add on to that visualization a little conversation with future you, where you can ask questions. And sometimes people say, oh, but I'm just making it all up. It's just in my imagination. And the thing that's so interesting about that is that, yes, that's true to a point, but you're also opening the door for your higher self and your subconscious to kind of play and give you some information that you might not have accessed otherwise. Because the thing about our subconscious and those regions of our brain that we're not necessarily aware of, they're always collecting data and information. And much of it is happening at a subconscious level. We're taking in more pieces of information than we're consciously aware of. That includes how we interact with other people. We're digesting information about their emotions, how they feel towards us and the situation. We're taking in details about our surroundings and our environment and various different things that we're not always processing consciously. And so doing this exercise opens the door to allow some of the subconscious information to come to you in a way that feels comfortable. Even if it feels like you're making it up, you may actually be accessing some pieces of information that are very relevant and useful. So what you're doing with this future conversation is visualizing your future self who's already stepped through those elements of that project. They've completed it, they've achieved the goal, they've solved the problems that you may be currently struggling with. And you can ask for some breadcrumbs to help you to solve those things because this person has already solved them. And you might be surprised at some of the detail and information you get. Sometimes it's a clear answer and sometimes it's just the next step. It's like a little sign or signal for where to turn next and just gives you a little nudge in the right direction for what you actually need to keep moving forward on that path. And if you want to take that visualization even further to the next level, you can also use a process known as reverse imagineering, which is essentially reverse engineering using visualization. So starting at the future point in time, where the problem is solved, the goal is achieved, or the project is finished, you then begin to slowly walk backwards on the timeline, starting with it being completed or resolved, and then looking at, well, what was the last thing I did right before I solved the problem or completed the goal or finished the project, and then going back a few steps further and visualizing what that looked like. So if it's a matter of project completion or maybe pitching a new service or product, maybe the last step was to begin promoting it or creating a sales page. So you know the elements of your business and can kind of ascertain what those steps might look like, but sometimes actually visualizing it helps you to kind of reverse engineer that process. And seeing it however you perceive it, whether it's visual or other sensory details, walking slowly backwards on that timeline and note-taking each step that you took along the way to get to that final result, and then continuing to walk backwards all the way back until you reach the present. And then, of course, assuming this is a visualization where you're kind of sitting with your eyes closed or something, I encourage you to bring yourself back into the present moment and do something grounding, wiggle your fingers and toes, just like you would coming out of like a meditation or a yoga nidra experience, and do something grounding afterwards to get you reoriented into the present state. And I definitely recommend after an experience like that you have a pen and paper handy or a notes app or something to write down some things that you came up with or that you observed as you were visualizing. It can be very beneficial. And if these types of exercises and activities are of interest to you, inside my Hypno-Pothecary, which is a mindset membership, I offer multiple different short 5 or 6 minute visualization practices that are guided, that step you through some of these things that we talked about today and many others. And you can just kind of lay there and listen as I guide you through it. It's set to beautiful, soothing, binaural music, just like all of my hypnosis audios are, but they're nice and short and sweet, like 5 or 6 minutes. You can do these little visualization practices and really make some very interesting and powerful progress towards your goals. So if that interests you, definitely check it out. Info is all in the show notes. And until we connect the next time, I wish you the most magical and creative rest of your day. Thanks for listening. This is Christine Collins at transformcreate.com.